Please welcome former President Bill Clinton and James Patterson.
Not a bad bunch of folks, huh?
Wow.
Yes.
Very kind.
They're very kind folks. Gentlemen, you wrote a White House thriller. I gotta say, politics is so boring. Thank you. Thank you for trying to spice it up, you know?
Well, right now it doesn't take a lot, right?
It doesn't take a lot. Well, this is a story about the first gentleman who is accused of murder. President Clinton, I'm wondering, what's it like to live inside the headspace of the first gentleman?
I don't know. I tried.
You did?
It's the only job I ever wanted in politics that I didn't get.
He's got all the good lines.
You're the writer. You got to do this.
I was the writer.
Let me say, it's not easy.
Sure.
I mean, but our guy is sort of a perfect picture of the dilemma, because he went to school with the president. Then they later met in California, fell in love, and got married. But he was a big jock. He was the first Ivy leader drafted in the first round in the NFL.
No shit.
And he's a complicated figure. He's not hung up about his wife being the president. He's proud of it.
But would you have been that as good as our guy? You know, I don't know.
On that score,
I think
I
so.
would have.
Yeah.
You would have. You would have been better there. Yes.
Since I know Hillary, he would have been. He would have been a good
Hillary
boy
was the
for
best
sure.
qualified person in my life. I mean, but what we presented that's accurate is he did want something to do that was his own thing. And he thought he could revive President Kennedy's Physical Fitness Council.
Right.
And also maybe murdering someone.
I was going to say, yeah, you're sort of burying the lead there.
Well, the murder thing comes up, but we're talking about right now.
Oh, you always want to talk about the murder thing, James.
Yeah, well, it's a piece.
That's the hook. But you want to talk about, you're inside the mind of the character here.
Yeah, but my point is, the White House staff doesn't know about the murder thing in the beginning.
Right.
They don't know he's under any kind of cloud, and immediately there are people who don't want him to do that. So that's a very typical thing in White Houses, all White Houses. There are people who think that if anybody else gets any credit for anything, it will diminish the president. And I never saw it that way.
Right.
When I was president, when I was a governor before, I figured if I appointed somebody to an important job and they did a good job, that helped me, not hurt me. And I could never figure out why but it's kind of a deal in Washington, and it's not confined to one party, that one thing. It's so you see that in our book. You can figure.
I have to agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on this one thing.
She's getting a surprising amount of love on today's show.
The fun part of it is a fun read.
Yeah,
and we do need a little break, honestly, I think.
Well,
you need a break, right?
If you want to take a step away from all the chaos of the news cycle, read a story about a potential homicide and relax a little bit.
Exactly. 100%.
I guess it's curious even hearing you guys talk about this. Like, I'm curious about where the genesis for some of these ideas are. Clearly, President Clinton, you come to this book with some ideas about what it feels like to be in the White House, some of the push and pull, the dynamics that exist within politics at that level. And James, you come into this, I'm sure, is it murder first? Is it story first? Is it plot first?
It's always character first.
It's always character
But
first.
interesting with this book, and we agreed on it, about halfway through, it wasn't working.
Really?
And that's never happened with us before. And he called up and he said, I don't like any of the characters. And I said, I agree. I don't either.
Yeah.
So we had to really go back and work on the characters.
We agreed. This is
but
our
it's all
third
character
book.
for me.
It's all character.
Alice Cross. It's all character.
Yep.
We all have to deal with our balancing, not all of us, but family and then work. That's what Alice has to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's this detective, and it's obviously over-the-top detective work. Then he's got to go home, and that's the series. It's on Amazon. He's balancing those two things.
Do you struggle with the fact of like writing empathetic characters in the White House, looking at the White House now, wondering, are there any empathetic characters in the White House? Like how?
Look, we always agree on trying to do an outline.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes
We try.
And then sometimes the plot takes us away. This is the third book we've done together.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, we agree on the outline. Then he gives me a list of 20 questions or more to answer to make sure that we're being authentic.
That's a key thing. I mean, I just make up stuff in my regular books, but with this, I have to pass the test of, well, that would never happen, or here's how it would happen, or here's what the Secret Service would do.
So you pop quiz him
it's a good
throughout
discipline.
the writing process.
And then he'll be fixing stuff.
I'm curious, like what parts that you've done 3 books now? Mm-hmm. What your view of the presidency before you started writing these films? Like what did you get wrong initially?
Everything.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that, and we tried to do before about just humanizing. I mean, unfortunately, we've gotten into a habit of demonizing everybody. And I know the show does it, and it's a lot of fun, and it's funny. But ideally, let me give you a quick.
You write about murder, man.
Yeah, but there's only one. There may or may not be one murderer in this book, but everybody else we needed to make him human. And the thing, let me give you a quick thing on this past summer. The president called the House, and my wife Sue was on. And he said, "Let me show you this. Put it on picture phone." And there he was with his grandkids, and he's in a tiger suit, and only his face is showing. Human being. We need to do more of that, I think.
Yeah,
human being. I don't know how we would do it with certain characters, but it's become. I don't know who that would be.
Do you think that humanizes the president, suddenly saying that he's wearing a tiger suit at home? I think that makes me worry about the president.
Well, no.
Are you okay, President Clinton? Do you need help with wardrobe at home?
My grandkids thought it was great.
If you're doing it with the 4-year-old, it's okay. You're doing it with your girlfriend, it's a little weird. Not him.
No judgment, man. No judgment.
Good point.
Do you know when this book is going to be banned by the Trump administration?
I was actually trying to think if there's some reason they could think of to ban it.
They don't need. It wouldn't be the White House, but in certain counties they may all of a sudden. And they don't need a reason. They just go in. One person goes in. I don't like the book. I go, okay, we'll ban it. Yeah. So it'll probably be banned in a couple of counties.
I don't like it. It's a bad deal. When Maya Angelou, who read the inaugural poem at my first inauguration, wrote it and read it, and was a great human being. The first thing the White House did was to ban her book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, at the Naval Academy Library and the Military Academy Library at West Point. And I can't figure out why. It's a magnificent book about a little girl who's abandoned by her parents and lives with her grandparents till she's 3 or 4 years old, and her brother. Then she has to go somewhere else, and while she's a child, she loses the ability to speak for a couple of years because she was abused. And then she blooms. I couldn't figure out why that was a problem. Why
so many mysteries these days.
Know about that?
Yeah. Do you think it's the blooming portion of it all? Do you think it has anything to do with seeing empathy for a small, young black child, perhaps, had a little something to do with it?
Beyond that.
And she turned out to be about 6 feet tall and no longer small,
So you think it was height? Height was the issue. Yeah, Trump is a very petty man. He's like, oh, all the books with characters over 5'11", get out of here.
She was a very large woman with a very deep voice and a massive talent and a great heart. And so I took a very dim view of that. We were friends. I spoke at her funeral. I didn't like it. I don't like book banning.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ever for banning books that were full of things that they said about me that weren't true. It never occurred to me that I should stop you from reading them.
Yeah, do you like... Sure. You're going to have some regrets looking back on what you could have done, I'm sure, yeah. It's interesting, in this book, another portion of this book is that the president is going after a grand bargain, which is a big, audacious bargain. I'm curious where that came in the writing process, and in some ways, would this have been Clinton 3.0? Was this sort of an agenda that you could see for America today? And follow up, why wasn't invading Greenland a part of that?
Well, we took that part out. We didn't think it was credible.
I like Greenland.
I wrote it in, and he took it out.
This is how it starts. This is how it begins.
Greenland does have a lot of rare earths and minerals that we might need someday. Denmark is a NATO ally of ours. Instead of stealing it from them, we ought to just make a deal and have a contract like normal people do. But this grand bargain is we got problems of our own making. And part of them, the massive debt we have, which is about, it's over 100% of our annual income now. A lot of it was unavoidable because of we had the financial crash in 2008 and then the COVID problem only 12 years later. So when interest rates go down below inflation and stay there, if you raise taxes or you do other things to tighten the economy, you'll just make it worse. So in those narrow instances, we had to spend more money than we were taking in to get any kind of economic activity. But you can't do it forever. And so we need to stop that now. And therefore, I think this latest budget sent to Congress by the administration was a mistake because it's going to make it worse. It's like saying, okay, the economy's doing fine now. We have relatively low unemployment. We have relatively low inflation, and it's getting better. And let's make it worse now and have a huge increase in the debt. I don't think it makes sense, and I think we'll regret it.
I think some of the critique right now is that Republicans seem to be the party that wants to be fiscally responsible, but they get in power and they don't act on that. Do you believe it's insincere?
It's all rhetoric. We doubled the debt when President Reagan was in office. We've been a country for a long time by 1980, and we doubled the debt in 8 years. And then we increased it by another 50% under President Bush. And he tried to do something about it. He signed a budget passed by the Congress under the leadership of the committee chair, Leon Panetta, who later became my chief of staff and President Obama's CIA chief. Then, after the second President Bush got elected, the first thing he did was to pass a big tax cut again. And he had a little bit of a recession to deal with, 6 months or something. So if he had said, let's do this for a year so I can avoid a recession or minimize it, I would have supported it. But he wanted to make it permanent. And it's almost theology with them. There's no such thing as a bad tax cut unless it helps poor people.
But in the book, there is a solution that's proposed by the president, And what we do, which is appropriate for a suspense novel, we kind of build up suspense about what is it until the very end of the book.
Yeah.
Which is appropriate, I think, in this kind of
Yeah, I figured, look, it's a book. It's a mystery, so we couldn't write a 30-page thing, but I tried to give an outline of
Was that the initial pitch of like, and the last 30 pages is sort of an outline for the plan for economic stability in America? And James is like, no, let's keep it to 2.
But
not two, but yeah, but not 30.
I tried to show that you could make a difference, you could make a change.
Yeah.
And we went through these 2 deep holes, so I don't expect anybody to be able to solve this in 4 years. I didn't expect President Trump to be able to. But you got to follow the first rule. First, if you're in a hole, stop digging. And then I was hoping there would be a balanced program to get us out. And that's what all this Doge was sold as. But if you look at everything that Mr. Musk was working on before he went back to selling Teslas, all of it together is a tiny slice of our budget. Most of our budget goes to health care, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, Veterans Health, defense, and the slice that he's got is not very big. You can't possibly solve a problem this big with a budget that's this. And it's our future budget. If you ask yourself, why is America leading the world now? It's because of our lead in technology and in biomedical research, especially, and lots of other areas. So that's what they want to cut. Mm-hmm. It's a mistake. This is like, I love watching the NBA Finals. These teams have been great.
Sure,
yeah. Amazing.
What are you rooting for? Are you OKC guy?
Well,
Pacers fan? Knicks initially, right?
I like them both.
Still the politician, huh? Okay, all right.
I was with Oklahoma City when it was bombed, and I've been with them ever since because of what they did with what they suffered. It's an unrecognizable place today because they worked together. And they had an ethic, as they said, of kindness and hard work, and it's worked. But I was not prepared for how good Indiana was. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fun watching them. Mm-hmm. So, I went in for Oklahoma City, and I haven't stopped liking them, but it's amazing the courage that Indiana has showed every time, and they're playing like great.
If only our politics could get back to the legitimacy of NBA basketball, where we could love one thing but understand what the other team brings to it all.
These people respect each other. You can look at them, and you don't see these Oklahoma City guys jumping up and down because Tyrese Halliburton doesn't make a lot of points because he tore up his right leg. Mm-hmm. And what did he do? He came back in the second half. He didn't score a bunch of points, but he ran the offense, and they did great in the second half. Yeah. So, I mean, it's...
We just need to bring respect back to perhaps the New York Knicks as well, right? So they may be feeling a few of those pieces as well.
The Knicks did great this year.
They did great. We could celebrate that, right? Yeah. Speaking of this last weekend, there was a little bit of money spent in Washington, D.C.
A couple dollars, yeah.
I think $45 million last I heard, at this big birthday celebration / army parade. I was curious if you guys saw that, or President Clinton, you thought about throwing one for your...
We were also watching when you were interviewing people, people are going, oh, we're cutting education, great. Oh, we're cutting cancer research, great. What are people nuts? We're cutting cancer research, great.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you interviewed.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Go back to natural. We don't need cancer research.
Yeah. No, it's one of the things I noticed when I was there. There's been a lot of
That's
talk.
what they should do with voting. You shouldn't be able to vote if you're going to say stuff like that. I'm sorry. you can't vote. I'm sorry, you can't vote.
Can't vote? That's, yeah.
Against cancer research and no voting.
That's the line, right? It's 18, and if you're against cancer research, maybe now is not the one for you.
And a few other things, yeah.
Well, I think the Democrats need to ask themselves, how come we can't beat that? And we need to think about it. Now, the Supreme Court's going to have to step in this time, it seems like, because they seem to say last year in 2 decisions, well, yeah, the president might commit a crime, but as long as he thinks it's the right thing to do, it by definition can't be criminal. Who ever heard of that?
Well, you see what happened this weekend as well with the No Kings protest. 5 million people.
5 million
5 million people show up. I think there's definitely an energy there.
Yeah.
When I talk to a lot of people who are progressive, I think they're frustrated, they're angry, many are scared. They don't know what the best use of their energy is or where to put that. I think this No Kings showing was one way of like a show of force. I think when you talk about the flaws, the Democrats unable to put up a defense against people who are anti-cancer, like where should that energy, where should that go?
First of all, I think Biden had a successful 4 years. He did a good job, I think. But we didn't have enough of a campaign on the back end. And I think it's a little unfair to say it's Kamala Harris's fault because she didn't ask for the circumstances which were visited on her. So now we've got what they have to do, the people in Washington, is they do need to show what's wrong with this budget and do their best to beat it or get changes in it and keep going. But it's not an election yet. And I think we need other people to come up with ideas. That's why we wrote the book the way we did, partly. Just to say, you can be a Republican or a Democrat and be for this. This that makes common sense. And we've gotten too far away from that. We're so interested in demeaning and debasing and name-calling. And President Trump's been richly rewarded for that, for being able to just divide and distract people.
Yeah, you know, I learned early on in terms of life lessons that skepticism is absolutely healthy and terrific, and cynicism is poison.
Yeah.
But what do you say to the young person who sees what's happening in Los Angeles and sees people standing up, upset about their neighbors being deported, and suddenly the National Guard being brought in?
Protest and vote.
Protest and vote?
Do things,
yes.
though. Don't talk about it.
Look, when people, like, you know, a lot of the lawyers talk to me about the Supreme Court decisions, which seem to say that once you're president, you can't break the law. You can just do whatever you think is right, and if it's against the law, you just say you thought it was the right thing to do. And I thought, well, there's an easy way to fix it. They said, what do you mean? The Supreme Court's 6-3 for them, maybe 5-4. And I always say, if you elect a Democrat president, they will have an epiphany. And all of a sudden, they'll rediscover the separation of powers and the things that, and constitutional rights and all that stuff. It'll change again. Look, we are the longest consistently lasting democracy in history. We're not the oldest country in history, but we are the oldest democracy. And Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, said after he went through that mess with Joe McCarthy, he was very worried about whether we would have the mental discipline to sustain our democracy when all this happened. And today it may look so. And AI scares people. Everybody's scared of something. But I'm just telling you, we're about to celebrate our 250th birthday, and so far, everybody that's bet against this country's lost money. So far, we have saved it. But citizens can't sit around and whine. They got to get off the bench and play the game. And if you don't like who's being elected and you don't like what they're doing, you got to get out there and fight for it. And one of the things that we try to do in this book is to make people see that. We try to make them see democracy as
and also a
struggle.
big thing about this book are the two journalists, and who really are trying to find out the truth. And I think there are a lot of good journalists who do that. And we're forgetting about that. And we go. People are going online for journalism that's written by fiction writers, just making stuff up. That doesn't work.
Not a lot of satirical comedians in this book, I notice.
Oh, what?
Yeah, it's surprising you didn't have more heroic satirical comedians.
That's the next book.
That could be the next book. Before I let you guys go,
Klepper maniac.
I like this. That's gonna sell. That'll definitely sell. Can I maybe get in on some of the royalties writing a book like that with you
The
guys?
next book, yeah.
I guess we won't do that one.
Before I let you guys go, I want to get your thoughts on what's happening in the news today. I think we covered this in the first act talking about Iran. You've sat at the table. You've tried to negotiate peace in the Middle East. And we have Donald Trump talking about whether he's somebody who's going to summon that, bring that forth. There's a lot of questions as what the next steps are going to be. I think as somebody who sits and watches that, who's been in similar positions, like, what do you hope for? What advice do you have?
First of all, they're not talking about negotiating peace in the Middle East because the Israelis have no intention of, under Prime Minister Netanyahu, of giving the Palestinians a state. And now they're too divided and crushed to organize themselves to achieve it. So, and President Trump apparently agrees with that they shouldn't have a state. But you don't want a disaster either. And Mr. Netanyahu has long wanted to fight Iran because that way he can stay in office forever and ever. I mean, he's been there most of the last 20 years. But I think we should be trying to diffuse it. And I hope President Trump will do that. I hope anybody there will do that. We've got to stop. We've got to convince our friends in the Middle East that we'll stand with them and try to protect them. But choosing undeclared wars in which the primary victims are civilians who are not politically involved one way or the other, or just want to live decent lives, is not a very good solution. Do I think that we have to try to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon? I do. I tried at that, and we had some success. But we don't have to have all this outright, constant killing of civilians who can't defend themselves, and they just want a chance to live.
Well said. Well, gentlemen. As successful authors with the book #2 on the New York Times bestsellers list.
It wasn't my first wish, but it was my second wish.
It's still a very good wish. I'm curious, as authors, can you tell me, do you guys know how the American story will end?
It's not going to end. Not in our lifetime.
You're all about sequels, huh?
Yeah.
Lee, I'm telling you, just, the people in this audience, you think about this. If everybody in this country who's worried about it would just start talking to their neighbors and generating interest, these 5 million people at the No Kings rallies, they're a pretty good canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, I suspect this summer is going to be interesting. I think there'll be a lot of people on the streets trying to express their
Just don't
discontent.
give up. Keep fighting. You got to. But I'm telling you. President Trump, whatever you think of the previous campaigns, did win that last election. And he has a right to govern and try to do what he thinks is right. And those of us who don't agree with him have a right to say we don't agree, and here's why. And you just need to fight. You can win this fight if you'll stay at it.
Awesome. The first gentleman is available now, President Clinton and James Patterson.